Hi and welcome back to my channel. I am Koala and this is my little nook in this end of the universe that we call YouTube. I am a shamanic practitioner mainly within Nordic shamanism, but I'm also initiated into Nustakarpa and the Munaki rites within the Kiro medicine. In this video, in this series, I talk about my spiritual journey as a trans man from realizing I was trans and up till today. And in this fifth video I have reached the fall and winter of 2022 in this timeline. So because I'm going according to the timeline, and there are it takes more videos to cover the first period of time, and then it will take less videos to cover the rest, and then I will, after this series, there will be a pause from this topic for a while, and I will talk about other things such as runes and Nordic shamanistic related things, because in these videos I try to focus on my spiritual journey and the tools and the methods that I used during my journey, but I do get into some personal stuff and it's all trans related. So after this series I will make some other content for a while, and then I will probably come back to some of the topics that I've touched on in this video and go deeper into those. Mostly I'm thinking of shamanistic or shamanic tools or methods that I mentioned in this series. So we have now reached the fall of 2022. So in my last video I talked a lot about integration and letting everything integrate into body, mind, heart and soul, and in this video I'm gonna talk about figuring out what I need or what I needed, and how to take steps in real life to approach that. So when I had integrated everything to a certain point, because everything happens in steps, baby steps, but it feels like big steps every time. Every insight feels like the end of the world or a new world opening up. And for me during this period it mostly felt like daunting. Everything was daunting. Everything was like, how am I gonna accomplish this? How am I gonna survive this? How am I gonna find the energy? What if people leave me? What if no one wants to talk to me ever again? What if everyone I know just abandons me when I do this? And it took a lot of courage. It really did. I didn't really think about it in those terms at the time, but that's something I've been told a lot, and I've come to realize in conversations with other people that it really took a lot of courage. When you're in your own journey, when you're taking the steps, you just try to see the next step in front of you, and putting one foot in front of the other. You don't really think about the amount of energy and courage it takes to even wake up every day and trying to build a new world for yourself, or dream a new world for yourself. Because the first step is dreaming. Dare to dream what the future would be like if you actually stepped into it. What do you want? What do you need? Dare visualize, dare set goals. And that's where I was in the fall of 2022. So this is when I came out to family and friends, and in this process there was a lot of listening to myself, putting myself first. And I think I mentioned in my other video that I had some help from a relative of mine that's non-binary, that told me, don't look at it as you owe people to tell them about yourself, because you don't owe anyone anything. View it as inviting people to join you on your journey. And that's kind of what really helped me decide who I wanted to tell and how I wanted to tell them by, you know, just inviting one person at a time. And then when I had gotten a bit into that process, I felt more comfortable, I felt more secure, I felt more, I don't want to say that I felt self-confident, because I did not, but the people that kind of rallied around me when I came out to them and supported me made me hopeful and made me realize that, yeah, maybe I can do this, maybe I can have the future that I deserve, maybe I can actually, yeah, maybe I can do this. So there was a lot of reflection during this period. So like all of the fall of 2022, it was like a pendulum swinging between going inwards and reflecting, and then whoop, swooping and taking big steps that felt like big steps to me outwards and showing myself to the world in different ways. So I did this by coming out, of course, and among other things, I came out in a video here on my YouTube channel, and I think it will be linked here if I remember correctly, and if I don't, then it's here. So yeah, I'm gonna link that for you. So when I had decided what I wanted, I took the step of asking for help, and I told you about that in my last video, that I applied for gender affirming care here in Sweden, and that starts off with just, you know, sending a referral letter into the place to the place, and it's a whole story that I'm not gonna go into how that works in Sweden. But when I did that, I knew that the waiting list was long, so I knew that I had to find something to focus on during that time, because I realized that it's gonna take a long time for me to even get my first appointment. So what do I want, what do I need, how do I get there, and what can I do on my own? That was my focus during this time. So the practical steps that I took during this time, I'm gonna start with the practical steps. So with the practical steps that I took was that I applied for a name change, which is supposed to be really easy here in Sweden. The process is quite easy. You decide what you want to be called, and then you go on to you know, the tax agency's, for some reason, website, and you go to the right section, and then you apply for a name change, and then if your name isn't weird in any way, you know, if it's a common name, then it takes about 2 weeks to 6 weeks to get it processed and approved. And there's no rules against having a name that doesn't correspond with the gender you were assigned at birth. So there's no rule against that, or you know, there's nothing regulating that, which is really good. It's autonomy when it comes to names, so you can be called whatever you want. There are certain like limitations for mostly, I think, surnames. So if you have if you want a really weird surname, or if you want the surname that is connected to a certain family in Sweden, you have to have their approval. And I think if you want to take a name from your own ancestry that haven't been used in a while, you have to ask the living relatives that still bear that name. So maybe, you know, second cousins or third cousins or whatever, if that is okay. So there's some like not modern ways of handling surnames, I think. When it comes to first names and what you are actually called, there are no regulations in that way. I was unfortunate enough to have to wait 6 months and be on top of it quite a lot. I think I waited patiently for 2 months. The third month I was like, what is going on? And I tried to get a hold of the person that had my application on their desk, and it took a while for me to actually get a hold of them, and I had to like nag them for quite a while. And then when I eventually nagged them enough, they pulled my file to the top of the line again, and they approved it. And that is because I am the only moss moon in Sweden. So because because I changed my name to Caspian Koala Moss Moon, but the Swedish word for moss moon, I'm translating it. So I checked how common Caspian and koala was, and there was already 5 koalas in Sweden. So I was like, okay, that's gonna be fine. I knew I was the only moss moon, but I didn't think about it that much. But because there was no precedence, I had to wait for a long time, and there was like a certain person dealing with those applications, and that prolonged the waiting period. But I never got any updates. That's what I really don't like about a lot of the Swedish governmental systems, that you don't get updates. A lot of the Swedish systems overall, you don't get updates. You get like, yeah, you're a part of the line. And then you have to wait and wait and wait, and there's no person to talk to, there's no one that, reassures you that everything is going accordingly, or updates you with, letting you know that, oh, this name is a bit different, so we have to check some things, but it's a matter of, administration, so you're just gonna have to wait a little longer. If I had gotten that reply earlier, I would have been less impatient. So that was a step that I took, and it was so affirming to just, not just being able to choose, but to have a name that I felt comfortable with. So choosing the right name for someone that is changing their name, whether it's for gender affirming purposes, or a lot of people I know, cis people that changed their name, simply did that because the old one didn't resonate with them on some level. Some people was called, like, had 3 names growing up, and they were called one of them a lot, and it got like to have a negative connotation with it, so they were more comfortable with one of the others, so they just simply removed one and chose another one to be called, but it was still the same gender attached to the name. They just changed it. And some people just chose a new one if they didn't like the other one. A lot of people change their names. It's not just trans people. And I think it's good that it's a right that we should protect, to be able to have the name that you want, So yeah, that was one of the steps that I took. And then another step was that I knew I wanted top surgery, so FTM top surgery. That was one of the biggest or most important steps for me to feel comfortable with myself. And I also knew that there were regulations around how much you weigh, like BMI, which is so ridiculous. Yeah, anyway, so I knew that I was a bit above the line, so I knew that if I had gotten my consultation right away, I would have had to wait anyway, because I was too heavy, and they would have said, oh, you need to lose this and this amount of kilos before we can do anything. So I knew I had to focus on that, and that gave me something real to focus on. That gave me something to hang on to and to put my energy into when I felt bad about myself. I had this one thing that I could control and that I could work towards, and I knew that I wanted not just to lose the weight that was demanded of me, but I wanted to be healthy. I was already quite healthy. I've always been a person that's moved around a lot. I like riding my bike. I like a lot of things that I like to, hike and be outdoors. But one thing that I could do more of was work out, because up until this point I had been working out a little bit to strengthen my knees and my legs and my knees, because in the past I had patellaluxation. I don't know the English word for it, but it's like when your kneecap flops. And I had also had some problems with the shoulder, and I had some, you know, exercises from the chiropractor to help with that. So I used what I had, and then I looked into, because when I set my mind to something, I do research. I really do research and make sure that everything is good, because I don't want to go in too fast, too deep too fast, and especially with working out, I don't want to do anything that might get me injured. That's not smart. I want it to be lasting. I want to be able to, you know, start off easy and then work my way to up, you know. My dysphoria hindered me from joining a gym and working out with others, and so I had to use what I had at home. So I did a lot of research, and I started off easy, and I also mixed it with dancing. I started doing a lot of free-form dancing and, you know, creative dancing, and just let loose. And that was kind of my warm-up during the winter months, because you remember I started with this the fall and winter of 2022, so I couldn't ride my bike because I don't ride my bike in the winter time. I live on a hill and that's just not doable, you know, to get on and off the hill. So that's not doable. So I had to, you know, do what I could indoors, except for walks outside. So I put together a workout schedule for myself with, you know, milestones, and what I, you know, when I reach this level I can expand it to this level, and that sort of thing. So that's what I focused on. So those are the two things that I focused on, you know, in real life, the two steps that I took this early in my transition, when I was primarily doing a social transition before I could access any gender affirming care. So it really helped me to have something to focus on, and so now we get to the spiritual side of this time. And I have already told you a lot about, you know, going inwards and listening to myself and listening inwards. And so this is post-integration, right? So when I had integrated everything that I had to in this moment, and I could feel some, you know, things started to happen, even if it was slow, and even if I felt like I was kind of, you know, dragging myself forward slowly but surely. I continued doing a lot of inner child healing work, because there was a lot of insights coming to the surface during the integration and afterwards. And ever since that, I had so many insights and so many memories pop up. It's not that I didn't have the memories before or something like that. It was like they had always been there, but, you know, when I touched them, I had people around me that said, no, that's not right, you're remembering it wrong, or you're making it up, or that's not what I said, and I've never done that, and or no, you were not like that, oh, you're not like that. I've talked about this early in this series. So because of how I was raised, and because I had to deny myself when I was growing up, all of this came to the surface. It was like, really, when the egg cracked, it was like everything was just spilling out. And so during this period of the fall of 2022, the winter of 2023, I had a lot of time, and I think the workout, you know, moving my body, getting rid of tensions, and working on like blockages, both physically and spiritually, really helped me to get everything to the surface. And I focused on sitting with them, with everything that came up, sitting with the emotions, sitting with the insights, allowing myself to be pissed off a lot of the time, and not just, you know, feel it and put it into the workout. That's not what I did. Because I know a lot of people that try to use their anger and their negative emotions and put them into the workout, but I feel like that heavy energy, putting it into yourself again, can do more damage than good, and it's not sustainable. So what I did, when something came up, usually during a workout or after a workout, I always end my workouts, I still do, with sitting down for a while. So I work out whatever the workout session looks like, and then I do a stretch. So during that yoga, and especially towards the end, when I feel everything, you know, centering, when I center myself again. So I always center myself again after a workout, and that is when I sit with myself. So instead of letting those, instead of denying those emotions once again and finding something else to do, I sit with them. And of course I don't just do this after a workout, I do it whenever something comes up. So every time something comes up, if I don't have the time right away, I schedule time for myself to sit with it, to let it come to the surface. And during this period I had to really work on opening up my heart to myself. I struggled a lot with opening up my heart to myself and not just think about other people's well-being first and foremost again. So I had to really work deep, and I had to work with my solar plexus and my heart and disentangle those, because it was like I had let my heart chakra envelope my solar plexus chakra to protect myself, my inner self, my whole life. And I had to disentangle those and let myself shine, and let myself, you know, when it was like, this was my solar plexus and this was my heart chakra, and I had to slowly remove them and letting this part be free, and letting this part love myself, but not hold myself and hide myself. It might feel weird to hear me say that my heart hid myself, but it was a matter of protection. It was a matter of it was a matter of protecting myself. So I had to work a lot of standing as my true self, and at the same time opening up my heart to love myself, because I had started protecting myself because my true self wasn't lovable, you know. And if it wasn't lovable, then, you know, that translated into me not loving myself either. So those were things that I struggled with during this time, when I had realized why it was like this. So it was like the why really opened up the can of worms, the Pandora box, if you will. So what I did during this period was a lot of inner child healing work, and I also worked on ancestral healing and generational trauma, and I worked with both lines separately. So I had to work a lot with the maternal side and the paternal side. So it was like a ping pong match, you know, because it is all intertwined within me, or was, but I had to separate those and see those for what they was, and work with them separately as well as together sometimes, because the relationship between my mother and my father obviously had a lot of impact on me, how they treated each other or were treated by each other. The relationship between your parents have a lot of effect on you during your developmental years. So I had to really dig deep into that, and a lot of it came up, and I had to separate myself, my little self, from their selves, and, you know, what they thought and what they believed, and what had made them do things. And I started to see them for who they were and how they had impacted me, and I'm still reminding myself of those things today every time something pops up, like, okay, this person is doing this because of their internal battles or their upbringing or whatever, but it has to do with them. I'm not responsible. Because remember, I've talked a lot in this series about me taking on other people's emotions and taking on responsibility for their well-being as a young child, because if no one else takes accountability, then the accountability is on me, right? So this was the first time in my life, three years ago, you know, that I started to actually see that it wasn't my fault, that nothing of what they were feeling or doing or not doing was, none of it was my fault. And it had taken me so long to get there. And as I said, I still remind myself of that to this day. It goes quicker now, kind of like this, and most often there's a feeling attached to that. I'm often become angry because I'm like, don't you dare put that on me. I took on that for years. That is yours, you know. So inner child healing work, ancestral healing work, and then working with my heart chakra. I worked a lot with cacao during this time. So a year previous to this, in the fall of 2021, I had taken a deep dive course into working with the medicine of cacao, with Mama Cacao, X Cacao, together with a mother and daughter here in Sweden that has a company that works closely with the people in, I don't remember what country. As I'm sitting here, it just, you know, it just vanished from my mind. But they are working closely with the native people in that country and making sure that they get, you know, enough wages for what they're doing, and they're really working closely with them and bringing the cacao straightly from there to Sweden themselves. And that's the cacao that I work with most often. And I took a deep dive course with them on how to work with this plant medicine in a respectful and honoring way. So when I got to where I was a year later in 2022 and the winter of 2023, I had this tool that I had worked with for a year, that I knew how to work with, and I trusted it, and I could really use that to my own benefit. And so I worked a lot with cacao during this time. I often work with it before a workout session, so that like the workout session and the integrative healing afterwards is like almost a ceremony in itself. That's kind of how I live my life. Most things is a ceremony, and sometimes I forget that. Sometimes I forget that I am a part of something beautiful, and sometimes I forget that. So I had this wonderful tool that helped me during this time, and that was the plant medicine of cacao. So those are the things that I wanted to talk about today. So the time period I've talked about is the fall and winter of 2022 and 2023. So from around September, October of 2022 up till March in 2023. Because that's when I got my name change approved. And in my next video I'm gonna go more into intention setting and manifesting the body that I want, and the ceremonial tools for that. Because in the next video I have approached a milestone in and of itself, you might say, with the spring equinox in 2023. That is when I really started working a lot intentionally, setting goals, you know, after integrating a lot of things and working on a lot of things internally. I had gotten so far that I wanted to set some intentions. And during this time I ping-ponged between a lot of things. One thing was taking physical steps and real life steps with the name change application and with the start to working out to lose weight. And I have made another video, I think. I don't know if it was in English though, about how to lose weight from a spiritual perspective and what that might entail to make it long lasting and healthy. So that was the two things that I focused on in my real life, you know. So spiritually, during this time I focused on inner child healing work, ancestral healing work, generational trauma work, working to open my heart to myself and separating my solar plexus from my heart chakra, and with that I used cacao to help me. And I continued the journey that I had started with the beginning of this series, the who am I? I am, but who am I? So that's it for this video, and I will see you in my next video, whatever it is about. See you later, and walk in beauty with yourself. Right. Xingling.